gonna try that again. Well, since we're starting over here, hi everyone. Today we're gonna be talking about 4 things that I wish my mom would have taught me about my body growing up or sooner. Hold on, we're gonna get her in here. Hey, I can't just start the live with somebody. I'm sure there's a way on it.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow, that's a big head.
Do you have your headphones close by?
I can get them quick. I don't.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I just think it's easier to hear you. Easier to hear you. She's up in a cabin in Northwoods, Minnesota. Sometimes her connection is really not great. So, good job. That's lovely. Well, anyways, hey, is your dog okay? I feel like the beginnings of our lives are never they're never well organized and
So
all of this. So,
I am forever technically challenged, but just go ahead, start talking and I'll plug in.
well, your hair looks really nice.
Does it? Oh, okay. Well, I was running. Did you also hear the dog barking? Because he didn't
I
like
don't
that
think I moved
running.
your neighborhood for the dog barking.
Oh, okay. I'm
Hey,
ready.
so I was saying in the last video that's now not going to get posted, but I'll say it in this one now too, that there's a little like caveat to this whole thing. So I said, we're not here to bash you. This is a mom bashing hour.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
um, but that the disclaimer is out there that like if there are any moms listening that have daughters that want to educate them, about their bodies sooner or better than we were taught, that like that's great, but it's also we've been conditioned to believe certain things about our bodies our whole lives, and as you'll hear in our background story, like it's not your fault that maybe your daughter's a little bit older now or whatever. It's not your fault you didn't get to teach her these things earlier. I think we've been manipulated a lot by conventional medicine to ignore like innate rhythms and intuition and things that we have as women. So that's part of the reason we wanted to do this, because the big contrast between how I grew up and where we are now too. I think it's just really interesting.
Yeah, you can really
And
feel like it's not your fault when you hear where we were and where we can and
you
where we are
were
today.
probably a lot better than we were back in the day, huh?
You mean when I was growing up?
No, when I was growing up.
Well, where do you want to
Yeah,
start?
well, let's start there.
Okay, background. All right.
Okay,
So
so
wait. Before she starts in, it's embarrassing, and also it's a little bit. It you feel like guilty. Like I had a lot of guilt when I first started learning more about how our bodies work and what is health really. And then I thought back to a lot of the struggles that you got, my kids had when they were little and on through puberty and into young adulthood. You guys had a lot of different struggles, mentally and physically. And the more I learned, the guiltier I felt that, wow, how come I didn't know these things? And you're right. We're never taught this. I certainly wasn't taught it when I went to med school. I didn't learn it anywhere. I mean, like it didn't exist. And so I just wanted to say, I wanted to be the fun mom. I'm just going to start there. I wanted to be the fun mom. I wanted to be the house where all the kids wanted to be. So I knew exactly who you were hanging out with. I knew their parents.
that's so smart, though. That
No,
was such a smart thing to do, too. But yeah.
well, yeah, it was sneaky is what it was. But I wanted to be that house. So so the kids loved coming. Why did the kids love coming to our house when
We
you
were
were
the
growing up?
We were
Yeah.
the just we had an entire pantry next to the refrigerator, to the right of the it was to the left of the refrigerator. That
Hmm.
was just top to bottom the best junk food that yeah, I mean it was the best it was all of the best stuff.
Yeah.
Like cookies, Milano cookies, Oreos, Pringles. I mean all the best junk food, everything was great.
Doritos. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything.
it was great. But yeah, we were known as that, and a lot of my friends had parents that were very health. I mean, at the time in the '90s, like very health conscious,
Mm.
and didn't allow their kids to eat a lot of sugar or whatever. And so everyone wanted to be at our house.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and it's an important point to make too. I think is at that time, like growing up, you had not entered into medicine at all at that
Mm-mm.
point.
No, no. I was still a computer consultant, so I knew nothing. But yeah, you're right. But it was more. It's very interesting because then taking the diet pieces, especially, and then also the lack of my educating you and your
Mhm.
sister on a female body and how it operates, taking that forward into some of the struggles that you guys had. It's pretty interesting how the impact. I mean, it's like I can look back now, it's easy, but it's like interesting the impact that diet really had. I mean, you guys like Kraft mac and cheese. Oh, and then we moved up to Velveeta. So I mean, like,
Mac and cheese,
woo.
though. Well, the dad made it, which apparently was not Dad's recipe, but I always thought it was Dad's recipe.
No,
Uh,
no,
apparently,
your aunt. It was your aunt's recipe. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But it was so good. But anyway,
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so it's interesting to think back on that. So why don't you go ahead and take it from there, because that's kind of and that's kind of the background, and we can get to the point where why did things switch? But
well, yeah, but and I think too. I mean, one of the big things when I was younger, like I did get my period when I was 9 years old. I mean, maybe that's too much information, but
yeah.
TMI. But that was, and you weren't ready. I remember you weren't ready for that. I was the first one of all my friends. My friends didn't get it till way later,
Mm-hmm.
which I think now knowing what we know too is indicative to the way we were eating and our lifestyle. We didn't put it together then. But yeah, and then going into puberty and the type
You
of what?
No, I was gonna say going into puberty. Besides getting your period at 9, you blew up. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you were the
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
you
yes,
were a very unhealthy 13-year-old.
yeah, I got very large, and then also, but then I struggled. I mean, I struggled with my cycles um, until my mid 20s, and until I started learning for myself different things about
Mm.
my own body and how to alleviate those things. And I had, I've had surgeries, I've had the endometriosis. I thought I had all sorts. I mean, doctors told me all sorts of things. I was prescribed narcotics, Vicodin, Percocet for cramps. Like this is what conventional medicine does, and birth control, right? I think for
And let's
me,
not forget the antipsychotics.
yeah,
You've been
at one,
prescribed it all. Yep.
yeah. But I think too, like for me, I was I was 19 when I first started birth control, which is probably later than a lot of girls, because I think a lot of my friends started in high school, and some for birth control, but I think a lot of the times doctors were just prescribing it to help with
Yeah, with
cycles.
with cycles. Yeah, with
We're
wicked
used to like,
PMS, with cramps,
yeah,
acne. I mean, pretty much anything that a girl could go into a doctor for as a teen. It's like, oh well, you just let's just get you on a birth control and control your cycle, and
yeah,
everything will be great. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that's all.
Oh,
I mean, it's all
her
in,
daughter was 9 too.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's getting, and overall too, if you look at statistically now, kids are even younger. I
I
mean,
can't.
that's like now, I mean, 9, when I was growing up, 9 was very young. I mean, most girls were getting it 12, 13. Some of my friends were even 14. But now, like 9 is average. 9 is normal. And some are even younger than that. So,
Yeah, but the difference between your 9 back in the day, which I think a lot of it was diet driven, the
mm,
9 now, a lot of that is environmentally driven. I mean, certainly diet plays a big piece, but we've got, we're plastic bottles that become, you know, like your body sees that exposure to that as an estrogen, kind of. I mean, as what else? I mean, just like environmental toxins, all of, shampoos and body washes, water. I mean, all of those things we have. It's much different today than it was when you were 9. So
yeah, I mean, and that, so I want to talk a little bit before we get into like the 4 main things. I want to talk a little bit about so when I was going into high school, so I was 13, 14 is when you went to med school.
mm,
So for any of you guys, like, it was later in life. You've not always been
nope,
doctors,
nope,
but
nope.
but so it was later in life for me, or for you,
But
and so I
but
was
that
about
was
13. So I was about 13, and I wanted to know from this point of view, what did conventional medicine teach you about female body, about what to educate your patients on, or anything?
well, I mean, it's funny because it's kind of a two-prong kind of a thing, right? So first you learn about the physiology, just the basics of the anatomy and, how the processes all work. What's a
Right.
cycle? What are those pieces of a cycle? How do you fertilize? How do you get pregnant? What's that process? I mean, it's all physiology and anatomy. And then on the other side of kind of like the treatment of symptoms, because or the treatment of a diagnosis, like PCOS is pretty new, but endometriosis or you know PMS, I guess, was like the big one. I mean, all of that was automatically, all of that is covered. The way you're taught, it's covered in your pharmacology classes. So it's here's a drug class. Here are all the symptoms that drug class covers. And oh, look, here's, acne, cramping, whatever happens to be, whatever the symptoms are, this is the drug you would give them. I mean, that's literally where your education comes from, is through pharmacology, and each class of medication, and what is it I can use that for. There's no talk about, cycle syncing or the fact that birth control stops all processes from happening. You're not getting a period on your off days, on your pill days, where you're taking your placebos. I mean, it's like there was none of that. There's none of that education. Now, I can't speak to what's going on this moment in time. I could give a guess, just knowing people, but that was my experience. Was it really is? Here's
It
the
really was.
physiology, anatomy, drugs. That's it.
But the reason why I think that you can probably speak better to what's going on now is because it really wasn't that long ago. I mean,
No, but
it was 17 years? No,
yeah, about
almost
that.
20 years. I guess it's been almost 20 years. But it took you 8 years to get through it. So, uh, about 12 years. No, so I just don't think medicine catches up as quickly
No,
either.
science doesn't. It takes years. But anyway, yeah. So that's, I mean, that's kind of the basis. So it's also, we never want to go, oh my goodness, like have you feel the guilt that I did. I don't want people to feel that way when we talk about things, or we expose things, or we examine things, or however we do it as She Health, or you and I talking on a live. And it also kind of applies to practitioners as well, because your doctors are not trained with any of this information either. And you come out and you're seeing 35 patients a day, and you're exhausted by the end of your 60-hour work week, and you go home and last thing you want to do is crack a book and learn something. Like it's, I know what we're cracking, and it's not a book. So so it's like I don't feel a blame for that, other than for the people that are the educators, the people that are running, the schools and the programs. But but it's like they don't know either. And so, it really is up to us to be our own advocates, to be our own, like, educate ourselves, find people that align with what you believe in, what you think, what you've learned. I guess I just don't want to have any blame come out of that piece.
Yeah. Well, shall we get into the four things that I wish?
Let's do it.
And these are definitely coming from my own, I will say, my own perspective and my own experiences. So from like daughter to mom, these are the things that I wish I would have known sooner. And I think there is, I mean, yeah, no guilt, but I do think there is a responsibility for moms to be teaching their daughters these things, because they're not getting it in school and they're not getting it from their doctors, So
Right.
who else has the responsibility? Unless you're like you and you give me this little black book with cartoons.
I know. Hey, every single one of your friends read that book. Every single one. I was providing a public service.
But all I remember is all the little pictures, I, but anyways.
If everyone wants the name of that book, I can probably go find it.
It was an American Girl doll book or something. But so the first one is, and this, I think, so a lot of us maybe now think this is common sense. I don't know, but I still think there's a lot of people that don't know this, but that you cannot get pregnant any time in the month. That it is
You mean that getting pregnant is in a defined period of time, not, yeah, okay. Just
right,
clarifying.
You just get pregnant any time of the month. There's a window for it. And I think a lot of the times women or young girls too that do decide to go on birth control don't realize this. They're just told you need to take this because, well, we're scared of pregnancy at a young age, but they don't understand that that there's just a small window in which it can actually happen. And that just kind of goes back to the birth control thing, for me. And it's just kind of this truth about birth control. And the reality about birth control is, yes, one, it's synthetic, and it gives you synthetic periods, suppresses your normal period. That's extremely, not to even go into, and we can go into what's in birth control, but what that does, especially at a young age, is, our bodies as women, maybe this is another thing, but we don't even mature fully as women until we're 25?
Yeah, it's mid 20s. Yeah. Everybody's a little different, but yeah.
Yeah. So you're suppressing what literally makes you a woman for sometimes up to 10 years before it's even supposed to be, fully, or even before you're fully developed.
Right.
So you're suppressing all these hormones. You're suppressing all these symptoms. These things aren't able to, express themselves the way they need to. So then by the time you get to the point where you're supposed to be matured, all sorts of things are screwed up, which is why fertility is such an issue coming off of birth control.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the reasons that fertility, people that we're seeing such a rise in infertility, but we're seeing such a rise in people having a difficult time getting pregnant because of that widespread use. I think one of the reasons is that widespread use of birth control, whether it's the pill, a shot, an implant, IUDs. It doesn't matter what type of anything that you're doing that is injecting or secreting a hormone into your body to stop a process from happening. Any type of those, yeah. So I guess that pretty much eliminates everything but barrier.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then not to mention the what's actually in birth control and how that's extremely carcinogenic, and we're seeing so many things.
Yeah, there's a lot of reproductive cancers now. There's a lot of, and not just cancers, but a lot of reproductive issues because, like you said, we suppressed our bodies from being able to have that ability to do all of the processes it needed to do in order to mature to the point where, whether or not you make the choice to have children, then at least you're ready. Like you have that ability because, in a healthy way. So, yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to number two, because when we're talking about this window of when we can get pregnant, it's knowing the four phases of your cycle. Knowing, not only knowing the four phases of your cycle, but how that actually affects your mood, the way you're thinking and processing information,
Your
how
energy.
your energy. So how actually our cycle, this monthly cycle, has different phases where that you can actually like tap into different things during these different phases. And I'm like, if someone would have told me that, like when you're a teenager, and think about, high school, whatever, think of if you knew, if you were able to be like, oh, okay, I'm in my, luteal phase, and I know that like I shouldn't, I don't go on a date, or I shouldn't, like, I can, like not be super social or feel that pressure to be social or whatever it is. Like I can, if you can schedule like presentations, like school presentations or, tests or different things. I mean, sometimes you can't, but sometimes you can.
Yeah.
And I just think that it was just interesting information. And then even going into adulthood, when you think about job interviews and college, or if you don't go to college, like
Yeah, just your everyday,
like,
work, family life. Like,
right.
it's, yeah.
I mean, I just think it's such a powerful piece of information that we're just never taught. And
Well, and also, I was just going to say, and on that cycle, hey, I was taught there's 28 days. I was taught that from my mother, whose mother taught her it was that. And, I was taught that in school. I was taught that in high school. I was taught that in med school. I was taught that in a lot of places, that a woman's cycle is 28 days. That is BS with a big old exclamation point. So I think that too is something that people have to realize, that, you're not going to fall into this perfect 4-week, cycle where I think it's like we use that word 400 times.
Mine's 37 days.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and it does. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, but learning, but being able to like, help your daughter, especially, in the beginning, especially, it's like, it's very, I think it's like, it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit scary. My favorite thing out of you was that, okay, well, that's over on your first one. That's over, Mom. And I'm like, yeah, until next month. And you're like, what do you mean? And it's like, well, because it's every month. And you're like, for how long? And I was like, I don't know, 50? And you about died. Like, you were like, no, we're not doing this all the time. Like, one time's it. That's it. I'm done.
I think that's how so many women feel, because they don't understand how like powerful this is,
Yeah.
and honestly how pretty freaking cool it is when you know what's going on. Like right now, I can be like, okay, I'm in my luteal phase, so I know how to work out, I know how to eat, I know how to, with what works for me, right? I know what social things I'm going to be willing to do, what I don't want to waste my time on. I know, and my husband knows, if I'm going to be like, a little bit not as,
leave me alone.
Yeah.
Just say it.
Open to things, at other times. So I think it's just, but it once you learn those things, it's you start to tap into those rhythms. It makes life like honestly so much easier, because you're not like, it doesn't feel like you're fighting against something all the time. And I feel like too, when you're younger, you're just always feels like you're battling something, like battling your body, and especially as girls, because we struggle so much with body issues and confidence and all these things, and we're constantly fighting our body, and then we're suppressing things like our hormones, and like we're just all sorts of messed up.
No, so if you think about it, if you can teach your daughter how to track that cycle, kind of start to learn her body, and it's going to change. I mean, it's not going to stay static. It's not the same from when
Well,
you
especially
start.
not at
No,
first either.
no. But if you can start to track that and start to learn those things, if you think about like one of your biggest fears in junior high is getting your period when you didn't know you were getting your period, and you got to tie your shirt around and sneak your way to the bathroom and try and figure it out. I mean, it's like, yeah. And you would know that, hey, you know what? I need to be prepared because it's coming today, or, So, I mean, I just think that there's just like there's so many little things that just you don't even think about. And then there's the bigger things, which is, really getting to learn that and being able to tap into the power and all of the things that are innately part of being female.
Right. And just to like briefly, I know cycle thinking is something like totally different that we could do a whole
Yeah.
training on. But just to touch on it, basically you have, so your 4 phases, okay? You have your menstruation, like the menstrual phase, which is the week of your period or however long your period lasts. And that's day 1 to day 3, 5, 7, whatever it is.
Right.
And during that time period, and I'm just going to do this like very
Briefly.
briefly, during that time period when, our bodies are basically like giving all of the energy, everything they have to shed this lining and do what it needs to do. We're already very depleted because we're losing a lot of minerals and vitamins through this process. And so it's like time to rest, relax. If you can take a day off on your first or second day, that's amazing. A lot of us can't, but just if you can, great. If not, you just kind of try to dial down like, outings or social events or whatever. Just try to take some extra you time, schedule something for yourself or whatever it is. And then you want to be eating I always just think like comfort food, which naturally I think if you use your intuition of like, I'm not talking pizza, although, but like comfort food, soups and warming foods and things that are gonna make you feel like cozy inside.
Mm-hmm.
Hot chocolate, like one of the best things, and there's ways to make it super nutrient dense. You can replace a lot of the minerals lost, things like that. So that's that. And then obviously we don't recommend exercise. If you want to exercise, walking, yoga, gentle stretching, things like that. Your second phase then starts after your period, which is your follicular phase. And follicular phase is the bomb. And it's usually when you have, you get the boost in energy. And this is all fluctuating with your hormones. Again, I could talk about this forever.
Yeah, this could be a whole nother thing.
Yeah. But just so you guys have an understanding of like things that are during this second part of your cycle, right?
This is when you get stuff done, you get that promotion, you do like amazing presentations. Yeah.
You have clear head and all the energy. You're feeling really good. Your metabolism is up, so you're probably like eating a little bit less. You're feeling less bloated, like all these things, and it's really moving you into this like ovulation phase, which is the third part, which is when everything's at its top: testosterone, estrogen, everything. You have beautiful skin, beautiful hair, you feel on fire, you're most likely very sexual at this point, because biologically this is when we'd want to mate. And so if you think about that
for procreation, yes. Yep.
You're at your height, and that usually lasts, that window that we were talking about before, it's that 3 days. And then you come into the last half of your cycle, which is your luteal phase, which the first week or so, first few days of your luteal phase can be kind of a play off of that ovulation. So you're still getting a lot of those good things. But usually as you get closer to, your period, your energies, you're going to just basically start to wind down. So that's why like during that week, a lot of women start to experience the PMS and stuff if we're not supporting these phases and doing what we need to be doing during that. And again, there's like very brief overview of cycle and cycle syncing and how it works. But
And just to make it even more confusing, as a postmenopausal human, you know, you can you there. I'm sure. I mean, maybe you have or haven't, but you can sync with the moon cycle as
yeah.
well. And you will, and once you start to get into that, you really do start um, to kind of go, wow, you know what? I mean, you really start to notice that cycle again,
Yeah. You
because
still
we
have a
still
rhythm,
have a cycle. We still have a cycle, even though, yeah.
even though you're
So
not.
even though we're
Uh,
not, even though we're not menstruating, yeah. Uh, even though we can't procreate. Woohoo! Sorry.
you did it so well 3 times.
Hey, I got 1 out of 3. Did I say that on a live? Oh my God. That was a total joke. It was a total joke. It was a joke. I'm not funny, but I can be funny. That was funny? I don't know. Let me know if you thought that was funny.
Anyway, I'll make sure Megan doesn't watch this.
Oh, it's okay. Teasing.
So point number 3. Um, this I talked about this a little bit yesterday on Instagram, but it's about the fact that, and this is something I wish I would have known earlier too.
Me too.
Yeah, is that we're operating as females, we're operating in a system, in a world that's really
Innately
built.
male.
Yeah, and it's built. And again, I'm not man bashing here, but actually, the like work and career and the go lifestyle, at least that American culture has been based upon, is very innately male, and it's based on a man's hormonal cycle, which is 24 hours, and it ebbs and flows with their testosterone and cortisol, and that's just fact. I mean, you look at the world; it's not built for a woman's 24-hour a woman's monthly cycle. Like, they don't go, okay, like the moon is here at this point, so I guess every woman's in their luteal phase, and we just shouldn't, like, why don't we just shut down the office? Like, corporates don't do that, and that's fine. It is what it is, but women are trying to fit into this very male dominated world. And by doing it without knowing their body and without knowing their cycle and knowing when their strengths, what their strengths are at certain times of the month, we're getting super burnt out, we're getting super stressed, we're moodier than ever, we're we feel like we're lost and don't have a purpose, or what, because we're just on this grind that was never designed for us. And I think a lot of people are trying to fight that nowadays. I mean, I think there's a lot of women that are trying to figure out how to make the system work better for them. But I think the best way to combat it, and this is me personally, it's my 2 cents, the best way to combat this is to start to learn and know yourself and take care of your health and get off the hamster wheel. I'm not saying quit your job or stop being a career, but you do need to know when your strengths are, what's happening, how you can basically like amplify those moments during your month to be successful and not feel like you're fighting your body all the time, because it's that fighting of your body that's causing you to be so burnt out.
Right. So it is kind of that, like I've said before, like I grew up in the I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan era of women really entering the workforce and really going for that career and the whole glass ceiling and then, the whole thing, right? And we were doing it in a very, very much sorry, Dayla gave me her cold. That very much that 24-hour cycle feel, right? And it's like now, women still want to be contributors in society, in a career, in family, in community. Like we are, like we've said a million times, we are those nurturers. We are the ones that are going to make change happen. We are the ones that are going to bring people together to accomplish things. That's our nature. We're the nurturers and the gatherers. Where the other one is the hunter killer, go get it guy. Yeah. So but in saying that, it's like if you can learn, like you were saying, when your strengths are having that career, having those, volunteer positions, having a healthy, happy family can be very much easier achievable because we're tapped into when we're on a, basically like when we can do things really well and when we need to say no because we're going to kind of suck at it.
Or just we need less stuff on our plate.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you do want to like plug into like a community or a volunteer or whatever. Well, I know that, during that week of, my ovulatory phase, like I can juggle 17 balls. Like I'm feeling great. I'm on top of it. And that's amazing. But
Yeah.
and it's also not this big weakness when we can't.
I know.
It just ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
But we as women need to learn boundaries and when to say no and when it's okay to say no. And there are definite times when it is, and you can still keep the few balls in the air that you need to in order to, keep going.
Yeah.
But it's great, and it does offer a lot of freedom. I mean, this is all talk about women empowerment. I mean, this is all about giving more freedom to women. Know your body, know your cycles, know the information about what's going on. Don't let, pharmaceutical companies
run your life
or
ruin your life.
But it's like when you put the power into other people's hands to tell you, how to be or to tell you how to dictate your health or things like that. Like this is what we've been doing. And then, now all of a sudden we're mad about it when things get taken away. And it's like, well, you actually have all the power within yourself. You've been giving away your power this whole time to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so like for me, I'm like, that's what this is kind of, I'm like, stop doing that. And figure out yourself, figure out your body, figure out what's working for you. And then there's so much freedom in that too. And yeah, career, getting pregnant, having a family, when to do things, when to say no, like it's all, and that's, nobody needs to tell, like you don't need anybody else to tell you.
Yeah, when all that's right.
Yeah.
So if you could wrap it up into like the 3 things that you wish I would have told you. Shoot, I wish I would have known that all those years. Oh, you got one more. Oh, I'm sorry.
I know this is getting a little bit long, but I have one more. And this is like a big one because I think this is something we didn't learn I didn't learn until very recently, till the postpartum.
Yeah.
And that's that cortisol is the puppet master to all of your other hormones. And I don't think that that's talked about enough, because even when women are talking about balancing hormones, they think sex hormones, they think estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, mainly. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, a part of that is managing stress, but it's over here, like a part of it. You're like, well, actually, when you look at the body as a whole, you manage stress, you manage cortisol, all these other things actually fall in line. And we didn't think about that until when I was
when you suffered a deep postpartum depression. Yeah. And it was interesting, even for me, I mean, doing this for like 8 years, I was in that same bucket of because honestly, I mean, I've done training. I've done 2 different very long trainings with 2 different functional medicine schools, and even then, stress is always the back burner thing. It was, and I think because it's become something that we're all so used to, it's just a part of life. Every single day, there's a stress. There's another one. Oh, look, there's another one. It's like we don't think about it from the right perspective of what's controlling or how that is exacerbating those situations that we're in. So back to losing my voice again. Back to your point of that cortisol dysregulation or being so important to understand.
Right. It's more than just a piece, basically. It's kind of, if you can focus on one thing, if you can really, and this is any woman out there, if you're struggling like health-wise, energy-wise, hormonally, all these things, and you're like, literally, the advice is crazy. There's conflicting advice. It's overwhelming. There's so much of it. If you can only focus on one thing, try to focus on stress management. And I don't mean stress management like go take a bubble bath. I mean, really figuring out how to balance your cortisol, because if we can do that, then the rest do tend to fall into place, and then you can start to support other things. But there's one thing you can focus on. And the best way to do it, and everyone hates me for saying it, is it's sleep. And it's so funny because everyone thinks, and this is again conditioned, every woman too thinks to get healthier, I need to do more. I need to do more exercise. I need to eat better and meal prep more and meal plan more. And those are all great things, don't get me wrong, but like, really?
Start with a basic.
It doesn't even start with a basic. Like, if you can transform.
No, that is basic sleep.
Yeah, but if you can transform your sleep, and I'm literally telling you, like, hey, health, to like improve your health, just like go to bed. Like that.
Consistently go to bed. Consistently, yeah. Same time.
Like go to bed.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what that would do. And like quality sleep is the first step to regulating your cortisol, which will regulate your hormones. And that's just not just for women, that's men too. I mean, they operate, their bodies are totally different, but
cortisol still drives their hormones as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I know like for us, our programs now and like how we want to shape and help women is through cortisol, through that pathway, really attacking cortisol from that, or attacking hormones and mental health and all these things from that angle, because we just think it's so important. So
okay, so yeah. What 4 things did I screw up and not tell you?
So okay, so number 1, that you can get pregnant any time of the month.
Well, that's just a mom scare tactic, but go ahead.
Is that what that is? Because we just believe it forever.
No, yeah. A boy can breathe on you and you're going to get pregnant. So just stay away from all of them.
So that's one. The second one is about like how your cycles, like what your cycle is, like what your 4 phases are and how they affect your mood and thinking and if
energy.
Like start to train you how to track them naturally, because then birth control becomes extremely obsolete. You don't need it. And small caveat to that, naturally tracking, everyone's like, oh, it doesn't work. But I call BS on that too. I've been doing it to not get pregnant for the last 2 years. It works. Okay. And the FDA even says, I mean, I don't know FDA, but if you use it, if you do it appropriately, it's 99% effective, just like any other birth control.
Time out. Okay, sorry. I'm going to interrupt on your 1, 2, 3, 4. First of all, birth control pill. I'm going to speak just to the pill. It has to be taken. If you ever read the 400 pages that come with your birth control, it's only 99% effective if you take it at the exact same time every single day. You miss one, you're screwed for the rest of that month. Start over next month. Nobody tells you that. I will bet you not one practitioner out there sits in front of a woman that they're going to give birth control to and tells them that's how this works. Because otherwise, people are always like, well, I got pregnant on the pill. No kidding. But a lot of people, I mean, I grew up Catholic. I grew up with Vatican roulette, they called it, which was natural family planning, which is what the Catholic Church preached, back in the day. And a lot of people got pregnant all the time. I mean, my gosh, So, and because they were not doing it correctly, so if you do it correctly, it is.
No, I mean, the difference between me and you, like we live in a different time period.
Yeah.
In like the technology around this is pretty freaking amazing. I mean, I take my temperature. I mean, I don't even have to anymore because I know my body so well because I did it for long enough. But you can always check back in, but you take your temperature at the same time every morning. That's all you have to do. And then literally it goes into the little space technology blah, and it just all of the information you could possibly ever want to know about your cycle, what's going on with you, when you're going to get your period, when you can get pregnant, and it's color coded and there's graphs and it's nuts and it's great. And I mean, that didn't exist when you were 10. That's just on your phone. You just carry it around, and literally it just requires you taking your temperature every morning.
Yeah. No. So anyway, it is very very, very effective. And
Anyway.
and like I said to you, I'm just going to say one more thing for moms with young daughters. Imagine
Listen for the last hour.
Imagine you talk mostly. So imagine you are a mom with a young daughter and you can help her learn her cycle. Imagine the power that woman now has going forward to go, yeah, no, not sleeping with you right now. You can just go bye-bye. You're not going to pressure me. You're not going to, emotionally do, whatever. I'm saying no, because I know that if we go ahead and do this right now, I'm going to get pregnant because here I am, So it's it's an empowering thing for a woman to have that knowledge, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just me.
Right.
Sorry, number 3.
I was a virgin until I got married. So I don't know.
Okay, so moving on to number 3.
All right. Number 3. Oh, that we are operating in a
24-hour cycle.
Yeah, the world. How not to be burnt out and get stressed. And then number 4 is just about cortisol. So those are my 4 things. I will post them in the
notes,
the captions with this. But yeah.
Also, maybe post your favorite tracker.
Okay, I can do that.
So.
But yeah, so that's what we have for you guys today, and you got kind of a little insight into the way that I grew up. Thanks. We all make mistakes, and it is what it is. And I learned a lot along the way, and I'm a better place for it now. And now I'm able to share things with my daughter that and you get to share things with your granddaughter, and it's good.
Yeah. No, it is good. It is good. Generational women. We need to do more of that.
Yeah. So hopefully this was entertaining and also informational for you guys. But yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Oh, so Thursday, just as a side, we do have an interview coming up with A-Dash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be our live on Thursday and their adaptogen coffee. I guess is So
yeah, and
tune in.
Really great, they're sisters, and they have a really great story that really connects to me and my story and she and what we're trying to do. So
yeah. So tune in.
All right.
All right.